Hello, everyone. I'm Colin Simpson from the TELedvisors network. We're the organisers of the Third Space Slowposium. Very pleased to be presenting a session on four phases of interaction, exploring how university staff work and learn in third spaces. And as we do this, we'll be working through some third space theory, which has been developed over the years by Celia Whitchurch and built upon by Natalia Veles. And both of them are in the session with us, which is just wonderful. And talking about how we actually move from a state of contestation in our relationships to transformation. So I'm going to hand over to Natalia now and just let her introduce herself and we'll get started.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you. It's my great pleasure to be here today and welcome everybody who were able to join us on so many different time zones and obviously very busy people. So very pleased to see you all. And I'll just start with by kind of introducing almost like starting with my research. So my doctoral research and my now postdoctoral research continues to focus on university professional academic staff third space collaboration. And in my career, I myself transitioned from professional role working in professional space to third space activities, I guess combining academic work with professional role, and now to full-time academic career. I am an academic head for career development discipline at James Cook University. I'm also senior lecturer and researcher in career development. And my allegiance continues to be with third space work and third space professionals, those people who we know navigate various organizational challenges, work across boundaries, spaces and professional identities, and those individuals who come across various challenges of traditional approach to kind of delineation of professional academic fields. They also try to fit research, writing, publishing in their professional commitments, and often come across so many boundaries within university reality. So it's really difficult for them, I guess, to combine this all. Now, can you hear the dog barking in the background?
Just occasionally.
Wonderful. So that's fine. So that's my neighbor's dog. Sorry, I just made sure that I don't go further until that stops. So I think that third space metaphor, who Celia introduced, we all know, of course, and provides us with a lens to challenge this binary thinking. And it also enables us to advance our university partnership movement through third space research and practice. And this partnership, of course, enhancement is one of the key goals of the TELedvisors network. And now just briefly to give you the perspective. So I was first introduced and privileged to be introduced to this network back in 2017 when Hank Huysam and Colin Simpson invited me to present at their first, well, it wasn't the first, it was in one of the many wonderful research platform research framework, and I was really pleased to be presenting at TELedvisors network. And our conversations with Colin through years were very much focused on our respective research fields, and we soon realized that we have so many interests and research ideas in common, and that collaboration, of course, was very fruitful and then led to us presenting this session together, which I'm, of course, very pleased. And so very quickly, so what we'll talk about today, I would like to talk about today is that we'll start with providing kind of brief introduction to the framework of interaction in third space environments, published by Celia Whitchurch in her 2010 papers. And Celia, please, since you are here, so if you would like any corrections, I'm very happy to suggest it's something that we will make it even collaborative discussion. So those two seminal papers were optimizing the potential of third space professionals in higher education, and also some implications of public-private space for professional identities in higher education. And the ideas were later also synthesized and advanced by Celia in her 2013 book, Reconstructing Identities in Higher Education, The Rise of Third Space Professionals. Many of us In fact, all of us are very familiar with this book. And I will then explain how in my research, I identified an additional stage of interaction to advance Celia's framework. And I will give an overview of one case study from my research, just to demonstrate how 4 processes of this interaction were activated in a collaborative university project. And we'll move to an interactive part of the session. Colin will be leading this part and will launch a Padlet activity. We will explore further what needs to occur to move interaction from one stage to another. We'll give you the scenario and we can all, I guess, discuss together and combine our thoughts for this Padlet activity. And we will finish with some group feedback and discussion about how these processes can highlight the third space working and learning. And we'll leave you with some further, I guess, provocation questions at the end of the session to go forward. So we'll start with the session with acknowledging the monumental work that has been done in the last 2 decades to advance our knowledge and understanding of third space work in higher education institutions, and also to advocate for those who inhabit those many spaces. It's a large and continuously growing international body of research on the topic of integrated practice, new conceptualization of university spaces, organizational and identity boundaries, and cross-boundary ways of working. So several published books and multiple excellent papers focused on university staff professional identities and careers of professional staff. The most recent addition to this growing collection of scholarly work is the Learning Development Project podcast, the creation of 2 co-editors of the Journal of Learning Development in Higher Education, Dr. Alicia Siska and Dr. Karina Buckley. The podcast interviews explore ideas and insights from the scholarship of teaching and learning within the field of learning development. And of course, a special issue collection from the London Review of Education, collection of papers on third space roles and identities in educational settings, co-edited by the eminent third space scholar, Dr. Celia Whitchurch. And this collection goes beyond the university environment and includes accounts from third space work and identities from across other educational contexts. And I think that Learning Development in Higher Education Journal is also preparing and will soon launch their special issue collection on third space. So I believe it's in autumn as in European autumn. So this is when we will see another excellent, I'm sure that will be excellent collection of third space papers. And we also have seen 2 literature reviews, one systematic literature review published in 2023 that Carol is here. So Carol and myself and Claire co-authored, and one scoping review by Thorpe and Petridge published in 2024. They both systematic and scoping reviews, they focus on higher education third space literature. And I think the richness of the publications and projects demonstrates how third space scholarship gradually matures. And this Slowposium is another example of this movement. So the research project that Dr. Celia Whitchurch undertook examined university staff who were on professional contracts, which of course we know are distinct from academic roles. And some of the participants also had experience in academic settings such as adult and further education. So the research project involved case studies with participants selected from a range of higher education institutions in the UK. And you can read a detailed description of the methodology, questions used in the interviews, and the findings, detailed findings in these papers. And we listed the references at the end of this presentation. Please take time to review. So if you want more details, but for the purpose of this discussion, I just listed on the slide, the range of activities that the participants mentioned as part of their current, well, at the time of research, current roles. So as you can see, those activities included program development, widening participation, community business partnerships, professional and academic practice, learning support, institutional planning, and communication and public relations. And the participants were invited to reflect on their relationships with academic colleagues. And their narratives revealed three distinct processes. These are contestation, reconciliation, and reconstruction. So this process of phases were conceptualized to offer a framework for understanding how dynamic these third space environments are. So if we look through each of the stages and just identify the key sort of features of these stages. So at contestation stage or process, there are certain challenges that participants come across, and mainly they're focused on rules and resources, as Veles mentioned in 1991. So the participants were experiencing various operational issues while they were navigating operational challenges, processes associated with various ways and paces of working, kind of reconciling that those very distinct types of ways of working among academic and more entrepreneurial approaches as shared by professional staff. So also there were challenges of contractual nature, so the clear goal-oriented nature of more like privately funded activities as opposed to more open-ended nature of academic projects. Also, they had political issues, the negotiations and political dynamics involved in those collaborations. They shared, in fact, not shared, they had different perceptions, as I said, of work, various activities crossing kind of public-private spaces and seen as other, kind of that othering element. And as Celia named it as resistance and struggle. So that's common academic frustrations such as management requirements, resources constraints, and also proliferation of that sense of otherness. And that was also stemmed from the lack of understanding of one another and their respective work. As you can see, quite a contested kind of contestation. That's why it's called contestation phase. Then we'll move to reconciliation. So this is a quote, page 26 from Celia's paper. The reconciliation process is underpinned by a belief in the possibility of collaboration between interested parties who can be persuaded that they have something to contribute to and gain from joint endeavor, or the perceived added value such as the development or initiative that would not occur otherwise, and of outcomes to which participants feel ideologically committed, such as raising educational and employment aspirations. So as you can see, the process is moving towards a clear potential. So the participants see potential for their collaboration and having shared sort of mutual benefits. That's also the perceived value from their development together, ideological commitment. They also start negotiating differences. And this enables new and unexpected forms of activity, such as professional staff engaging in work that might otherwise, they may be excluded from it. For example, teaching or business incubation type of activities. There's also facilitating of understanding and development, and that involves cultural translation. So that can lead to new activities and relationship. And as Homi Bhabha referred to third space as a space of critical exchange, in this reconciliation process, such critical exchange occurs where original binary, that, for example, academic and professional choices, are transformed into something new, new alternative practices, new ways of working and learning. Then we move to reconstruction phase. So during the reconstruction process, identities are no longer tied to traditional rules and resources. So we'll move away from that contestation of rules and resources from specific origin, but instead they are shaped around this environment that unites public and private spaces, academic and professional identities. And this environment is characterized by interactions among academics, professional colleagues on equal intellectual footing, and the freedom to create solutions tailored to specific situations. So those new rules and resources and new structures emerge, and they displace old histories or narratives. So this pluralistic space is reflected in the language of partnership, capital building, networking, creativity, and these are the prevalent discourses of cross-boundary practices. So as individuals actively contribute to the creation of these new spaces, they develop new identities for themselves and their teams. And the reconstruction process involves investing in both strong and weak links within university and outside the organization, integrating various activities, creating reference points, and using tensions productively. So this dynamic, we can see that this already dynamic environment is more conducive to institutional and professional growth. It helps alleviate some of the frustrations associated with the contestation process. And overall, the reconstruction process is marked by a shift from rigid regulatory procedures to a more fluid and interconnected approach to forming new identities. And so the processes of contestation, reconciliation, and reconstruction are interconnected, and they can occur simultaneously, representing different stages in the development of activities and identities. So individuals may align with one process or display characteristics of multiple processes based on circumstances. And some may focus on contestation, deconstructing existing rules and resources, while others engage in reconstruction, reconciliation, negotiating solutions among various constituencies. And others may navigate all three processes using the tensions of contestation to contribute to reconciliation and reconstruction. So these concepts help us describe the complex and multidimensional nature of working in third space environments. And so these processes also show how staff work towards common goals, so their ideological commitment, and at the same time experience frustration, tensions, and often disenchantment in the process. And so I'd like to move to very quickly to my research now. And in my book, which is largely based on my doctoral research and was published in 2023, I explored 5 collaborative projects using the qualitative multiple case study methodology. And so those projects were all completed in one regional university with campuses in Australia and Singapore. And they ranged from those 5 collaborative projects from academic research, increasing academic research visibility, that was one project, to commercialization of a research solution, the second project, to expanding the educational choices for students in one geographical region, the third one, and fourth one, and to developing a research culture in one institutional campus, the final one. So 3 projects took place on Australian campuses and 2 in Singapore, and they involved cross-border, cross-national collaboration between Singaporean and Australian staff. So drawing on the university third space environments typology, that was published by Celia Whitchurch 2008, one project was integrated and it was fully embedded in the organizational structure and also recognized as part of the university domain of teaching and learning. Then all 3 Australian projects represented a transition from one university third space type to another. And the final project that was developed in Singapore represented a mixed type of semi-autonomous and integrated project. So the scale of the projects ranged from 2 large ones involving many actors and large internal and external funding to 3 smaller or relatively small projects. Those involved only a small group of people and some nominal investment from the university. So I identified that 2 of the projects that I explored, the interaction among staff within third space project reached further impact and longer lasting changes, which I then called the transformation phase. And I was going to sort of describe this case study and what happened in that particular project. That led me to kind of believe that they reached a certain transformation phase. So if there are no, questions or comments, I'll just describe the case and then move to the thank you, Colin. Thank you. So kind of giving you a very quick background of this project so that you can see what happened actually and who were involved and what the outcomes were. So it was a project of quite an entrepreneurial type of work, involved collaboration among 3 key Australian tropical university actors. And so the first one was a scientist who I refer to as academic. So from now on, we'll just refer to this person as academic. The second person was the technical solutions manager. We called him the innovator. And the third one was research business manager. We called him the business manager. So the three people, so their collaboration started with the academics' need to redesign an outdated piece of research equipment. So the equipment in question was the pump for collecting water samples in the field. So the collaborative project that the three of them started resulted in developing and building a new device for the academic and a new solution for the whole scientific community. So the innovator worked with the academic to understand the technical specification and designed and built several prototypes of this device, and the final version of this new piece of equipment or sample collection equipment was a lot more robust, lighter in weight, lower in production cost, and also environmentally friendly, which was very important for the academic. So the business manager contributed to this project, provided his research, commercialization, and intellectual property expertise. So you see the three of them came together to work on this need for the new device and also for the commercialization of this device. So soon after they started working together on the project, all three of them were quite lucky to actually be able to enter a highly competitive national research innovation program. And some of you may have heard it. It's the Australian program, which is called On Accelerate. It used to be, I don't think it is running anymore, but it used to be several years ago, a program run by the Australian Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization, the acronym SCIRO. Many of you are, of course, familiar with this. And it was a structured accelerator training course for research teams, and I stress that they were not for individuals, but for research teams to develop high potential innovative ventures. So many teams were applying, and on a kind of competitive nature, teams were selected and funded by the universities to take part in this program. But after they completed the programs, SCRO were funding the teams who completed the project with, I guess, not only financially, but with ideas, materials, networks. It's really, like I said, very competitive program, and it's very desirable program to be part of course. And it was, all three of them commented that it was so grueling, demanding, and insanely fast-paced program, but at the same time, the most rewarding experience that helped them to develop their collaboration, assisted with networking on a national and international levels. So after they completed the program, two of them, the academic and the innovator, they continued working together and transformed this small-scale institutional research project into setting up a commercial research entity that later became independent from the university. So that became this independent third space, kind of incubation third space for commercialization of activities. So how did they all come together? So they really came together by chance, so either through internal recommendation, word of mouth, based on some prior knowledge about one another, and all three of them were inspired by others' diverse thinking, their perspectives, and complementarity of their skills. So they all had deep appreciation of others' unique talents, and this assisted them, of course, in developing their professional relationship. And as they completed the research acceleration program, they acquired business knowledge, skills that they had previously lacked, and all developed what they called translational skill, which assisted them in developing their boundary crossing competence, and that was learning about another person's field of expertise. And this new skill helped them to communicate across professional boundaries with confidence. So their learning transformed their identities. It provided them all with much broader views of the definition of success in research and business. And they also realized the transformational power of technology through people's collaboration. So the overall success of the project was grounded in these three actors who valued their professional relationships and combined their three individual passions conservation, innovation, and research commercialization to create this unique space for experimentation in creating new ideas together. So what's important is that their communication was built on the principles of open discussion, free exchange of ideas, and valuing one another's perspective, rather than being formed and framed by their positions in the organizations, their perceived authority or some form of control. So the key learnings from the project included the importance of connecting with the right people based on their experience and collaborative cross-boundary mindset. Also, the necessity for the university to acknowledge collaboration as a critical way of working together to achieve desired outcomes. The need for the university to provide collaborating staff and teams with space and time to develop professional connection and networks. And finally, team members advocated for staff to receive more individualized approaches to recognizing and showing appreciation for their work and contributions from their managers and university leaders at large. So if we look at this project, what happened in terms of phases of interaction? So in line with Celia's framework, the first 3 stages of staff interaction and learning involved. So at contestation, so in the initial phases of the project, the participants faced, of course, many challenges, and those were related to operational issues, the industrial organizational work, obviously academic staff members on the academic contract, professional staff members on professional contracts. Then, of course, the political dynamics as who works when and how, and who has sort of more rights for that collaboration and the commercialization of the products. So they also struggled with the lack of dedicated time for innovation work. So simply was not in their workload. They somehow needed to fit this all in. And also they commented on that there was a lack of congruence of the project's innovative and collaborative nature and the existing systems, boundaries of the university environment. So different types of contracts, paperwork, forms that they had to go through, and not even knowing who is the holder of those forms, what forms they needed to develop. There were many such challenges. They also found very difficult to locate the right people to either join the project or even assist with some knowledge to contribute to their project work. So participants had to navigate these challenges while juggling their full-time jobs and participating on top of it in the National Research Acceleration Program. So you can see that contestation was quite prominent in their initial stage and throughout the project as well. So then reconciliation phase. So as the project progressed, the focus shifted to the potential for collaboration and mutual benefits. So the participants negotiated differences, they facilitated understanding and development, created a space for critical exchange. The university, as I said, provided this support through enabling them and funding the project team to participate in the National Research Acceleration Program. Maybe not so much with time, as they somehow needed to fit in the program with their full-time work, but at least with the funding and the ability for them to participate in this really highly desirable program. And so despite the challenges, the participants appreciated the diversity of people, perspectives, and this all helped them in strengthening their professional relationships. Then we look at the reconciliation. So what happened at reconciliation? In this phase, identities were no longer defined by their traditional rules, resources, their contracts, their kind of industrial standing, or even university boundaries, but rather by this new pluralistic third space environment. Their professional identities were transformed, providing them with broader views of success in research and business. They also actively contributed to forming new skills, practices, sometimes very, it was uncomfortable space for them, but they overcame this initial discomfort and this further developed their connections also with outside networks to the organization. And then we have the final phase, which I believe that was identified as the transformation phase. So we saw the interaction among staff leading to significant and long-lasting changes on 3 levels. And those were personal, organizational, and inter-organizational levels. So the project participants managed to transform a small-scale, semi-autonomous research innovation project into a commercial research entity, which became independent from the university. By the way, they still run this company if you are interested. So they still develop those commercial devices and actually provide it for the whole research community. So this stage was marked by practice-oriented learning, dialogical interaction, and also the creation of collaborative capital. So the transformation involved learning at the boundaries, integrating individual worldviews and perspectives, and also rethinking and reshaping their roles and identities. And so transformation, I concluded that it was characterized by the following elements. So learning at the boundaries, that's transformation, represents practice-oriented learning, which creates a tangible and often long-lasting impact or change. Dialogical interaction and collaborative capital creation. So the core attribute of this type of learning, as opposed to that occurring during the phase of reconstruction, is that the dialogical interaction leads to the creation of collaborative capital, which is activated by cohesive and consistent efforts of all actors working across boundaries. And then 3 levels of transformation. So this transformation can occur on institutional, interpersonal, intrapersonal, or on all 3 levels. So these transformative changes resulted from staff developing collaborative relationship and reshaping and recombining their individual or group professional identities, or from them developing new practices altogether through co-creation and collaboration. So the integration of individual worldviews, perspectives, and personal and professional discoveries. So such integration leads to delivering transformative outcomes on all 3 levels. And then this lasting transformation of processes and practices. So this process is accompanied by rethinking and reshaping of individual roles and identities. And here is what became evident through reflecting on the single third space project case study. So participants first actively challenge their own and other practices and identities. That's learning through identification. Secondly, they searched for common practices. That's learning through coordination. And finally, they critically assessed and challenged the existing boundaries and navigated or often transcended those boundaries to help them in authentic dialogue and create new boundary practices. So without the involvement of all 3 stages, projects were unable to achieve substantial transformation at all levels. Progression through these stages pointed to a natural accumulation of knowledge through the reconciliation of diverse perspectives, and it's evidenced by perspective taking, perspective making, reflective practices. So boundary the behaviors that were offering that boundary crossing within this large-scale university third space project may lead to discontinuity of practices and result in decreased potential for learning at the boundaries. By contrast, when actors can challenge, navigate, and even transcend various boundaries, learning reached genuine transformation at multiple levels, which is that institutional, interpersonal, and intrapersonal. So in summary, an original 3-stage lens, which included contestation, reconciliation, and reconstruction evolutionary phases, was therefore advanced by addition of the transformation phase, which took the third space collaboration to a, if you like, qualitatively new level. So the 4-stage framework is a testament to the complexity and non-linear nature of professional interactions. It is also evidence of the maturation of boundary practices in university contexts. And I think that will lead us to the activity, Colin, if you'd like. So this is just the summary of the project. So you can see 4 stages, but the activity will be based on the transition from one stage to another. But I'll let Colin explain this our activity that we're going to work together on.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Like I've read this work so many times, but it's still always a little bit exciting because I feel that in so much of the discussion around working in the higher education third space, we're very aware of what all of the challenges are, but I like the fact that this potentially offers a fairly detailed kind of roadmap of how we can address some of these things if stars align and people are willing. So in that spirit, we thought we'd collectively maybe take about 10 minutes or so. We're a fairly intimate group here, which is nice. And we thought we'd give you a chance to see how you go with applying some of these principles. So we've created a scenario which may be very familiar. It's certainly a story that I've heard before. Your university has decided to embark upon a major curriculum renewal project involving an ongoing collaboration between academics in the history school and a group of academic developers, learning designers, and ed techs, who we'll collectively call ed advisors. Academics are skeptical. They wonder whether ed advisors understand what they're teaching and how they teach history. And they feel that ed advisors probably need to be much more like academics for this to work. And this is basically the first time they've not had complete control of their curriculum process. There are certain sensitivities at play. The ed advisors have had a look over their work, and they certainly have some ideas of things that can be created. Yeah, so we won't worry about breakout groups. What I've set up is, if you want to stop sharing, Natalia, thank you. I've set up a little Padlet, and I'll share that, and I'll also pop the, let's see if this works. I'm just going to pop the link for the Padlet in the chat. Please do let me know if oh, the chat has disappeared.
I can see the Padlet, I think.
You should be able to see the Padlet, but obviously it'd be nice if people can can work on it as well. So can people, I don't know, pop something on the Padlet or give us a thumbs up or in some way indicate that you are actually able to access the Padlet and the link that I've shared is helpful. Wonderful.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, Tanya, I'm imagine wonderful.
Yeah. So in addressing this, we thought probably in practical terms, the best way to think this through is what actions might be taken by the academics, by the ed advisors, and by the learning and teaching leaders, your ADEs and your Deputy Vice Chancellor Education and all of those kind of people. How can we actually get past some of these barriers and use this kind of process to foster new relationships? So we're just going to kind of, we can handle this a number of ways. If you just want to start adding things to the Padlet that come to mind, or if you want to speak up, we can sort of have a little bit of a discussion about it. It's kind of up to you. Elizabeth, I will flag, Elizabeth did ask a great question. How do we see the difference between collaborative capital and social capital? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Elizabeth, yes, thank you, Elizabeth. That's collaborative capital is, and please all share your views. That's really good. So it's a form of social capital. It's actually all the resources that people, I guess, draw on in terms of collaboration, but it's also the resources that organization affords them. So it's really those resources that enable them to collaborate. But it's essentially, it is a form of social capital, where social capital draws on mainly relationship. Collaborative capital sort of draws on all the, I guess, affordabilities of all the, space, time, the boundary practices, and so on. Does that make sense? Thank you. But excellent question. Excellent.
Okay, Elizabeth's got another question. She's interested in your description of how the project team was formed, which is a bit different to this scenario. In this scenario, there's less selectivity on behalf of the participants. Do you think this makes a difference if people are kind of thrust together rather than choosing to come together. So you're muted.
Sorry, particularly if there's no external funding or an external driver.
Yeah. So this scenario that we're talking about now, less selectivity on behalf of the participants. Yes, it does. It's actually, yes, I guess I'm just trying to remember why I'm just pausing, trying to remember from, I guess, the participants in my research, the accounts that they were, some of them were, I guess, commenting on that funding makes a huge difference. And then some were saying that funding doesn't make a difference. So it depends on, I guess, what the purpose, why they come together, whether they are sort of driven by that, the passion for certain, I guess, whether it's research activity or commercialization or improvement, a certain type of improvement activity. But like I said, I think some commented, strongly commented the funding and kind of imposed structure was helpful, and the others were more leaning towards the free-flowing collaboration, not restrained by funding, but choosing the project of their, I guess, need for the organization, need for their own development. So does this make it, I don't know whether in Celia, of course, in Celia's research, there's so many more accounts of different collaborations, so that could also be providing some light on the how people kind of view that collaboration. Anthony, expectations.
Something that I think is interesting in this process, having been involved in a process like this a bunch of different times, is that from my experience, academics feel that they can capture a learning moment in a way that's very difficult to translate to a description or a pedagogical framework. Did you come across anything like that in your research? The idea that there's a teaching moment that that is unique to the academics' understanding of the subject and their students?
No, that's interesting. It's interesting perspective. I'm just processing that. I don't think it was formulated. No, interesting. Interesting. I have to think about it more. So difficult to capture that. Does this kind of relate to the experiences perhaps that in the past that some had maybe academic roles, or at least the academic parts of their roles, or what do you think? Or
I'm talking about a scenario like this where you have academics who are trying to work with learning and teaching leaders and advisors to sort of create an outcome, and they've got an experience of an outcome, but that tends to be not a paperwork or a descriptive experience. It tends to be an experiential experience, especially for people who are used to teaching in person.
It's the vibe.
I see. Interesting. Yeah.
But I think also, you know, the scenario that you present in your research is quite different, where they're working on a project that has a commercializable outcome rather than trying to teach people how to be journalists, for example.
Yes, I think that's very true, Elizabeth. The outcome is more defined. Although they started, I'm just trying to also remember, they started without even that commercialization idea. So the scientist or the academic was driven by the simple improvement of that device. She didn't even have any, I suppose she was sort of like, that's what I was talking about, the narrow definition of success. To her, it was that, oh, well, this device that needs improvement, it will help me collect samples, it will be more environmentally friendly, it will be lighter when I go to the field, so I don't have to carry those ones. And then it somehow morphed into something, or translated into something, because other scientists in her disciplinary group were asking, so, oh, you've created something amazing, so can we have some of these? And then they thought, okay, so maybe we should make it available to the whole community and scientific community. And that's kind of slowly, they that she was sharing with me at the beginning, they were not even thinking about any profits or anything like that. However, when they joined this Accelerate program, they were almost, they went through this program with this mind of commercialization or more of a kind of commercial nature in mind, but then disseminating that kind of research and making sure that the device to make research happen is really kind of made available to all. Yeah, but I agree with you, that's different type of an outcome that they had in mind, although it changed through the process. Okay, we've got really wonderful feedback. So clarity, final goal, realistic time allocation. Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And adequate resources, Carol, absolutely.
Something else that's interesting, and I guess this is a question for both Natalia and Celia, is the question about where academics perhaps see the boundary of their role. And it's certainly been said to me, well, I don't know how to do this. That's your job. I just tell you what I want and you have to tell me how to do it. And I'm wondering whether you guys have come across that much in your research.
Can I just jump in while Celia is thinking also on this response? I think that, Elizabeth, you will, I will try to be very positive, but universities going through the restructures, and it's almost like the answer is that it used to be not your job, but now it is your job. So, you know, like I just, honestly, this week we were discussing, and who's going to be translating these new resources, learning resources into H5P or Canva. And then one of the academic staff members in my team, they said, oh, it's not my job. I'm not doing this. This is, you know, they need to figure out. And this is all this kind of mythical they. And there's no longer they because the team changed. The team was reduced in the number. And we're now thinking, well, how do we do that? But it's also like reconciling how long it will take us to do it as opposed to people who are exceptionally skilled, with such excellent expertise, and where will this be, like the cost benefit analysis goes into that. And it's also that I think personally that people really love doing this. Like I work with an excellent team member and she just loves that help, loves this assistance, loves this interaction. And when we go to all this AI space and kind of very commercial mindset, it's somehow that the relationship will probably be, I guess, maybe the value of the relationship will be decreased, not through the people, I guess, not from the people desire, but from their kind of university reality, you know? Celia, what do you think about where those boundaries now lie in this contemporary AI-driven efficiency?
Yeah, well, thanks, Natalia. Well, of course, I retired really when this was all just started. I retired in 2021 in terms of face-to-face teaching in the classroom, though, as you know, I still do an awful lot of work, unpaid. But I would say, I think at the moment, academics and advisors are going through a transitional period. I mean, you still have a lot of academic staff, people like me who began their careers long before there was any kind of use of IT in the classroom. So I think as younger generations come along, they'll be more familiar. I mean, that's not an awful lot of consolation right at the moment, but I would say there is kind of a bit of a hump going on at the moment because, you know, there are people who've been teaching for 20 and 30 years who've never had to do this kind of thing. But the other advice I always give as a change manager in the past, or used to give, was try and work with the winners, get a few enthusiasts, because there are enthusiasts among academic colleagues, perhaps not in history and English and those English and languages, those kinds of areas. But I think, you know, maybe scientists are much more willing to work with colleagues in the IT field. So, you know, you have to make progress where you can. I mean, that's just a general change management bit of advice. But and there's, I mean, I remember years ago I worked in the Faculty of Arts because I was a professional manager for 30 years, And we had a history professor who knows, this is like 30 years ago, and he couldn't even use a calculator. So we had to calculate all his exam results for him. So, that was going back into the dark ages, but it's the same principle. I mean, there's some people who are never going to convert, and you have to spoon feed them, and it's just very, very trying. But then, you'll be able to find people within the academic program teams who learn fast, and then you can use them to train the others, hopefully. So I think it's a process rather than a one-off event.
Yeah, indeed. All right, Colin, how are we for the Padlet completion? So we've got.
I think the Padlet's looking pretty good. I am noticing that we are coming towards the end of the session. Did anyone want to comment on things that they've sort of shared? Celia and Natalia, is there anything that you think we've missed? Are there other actions or approaches that ed advisors or academics or learning and teaching leaders could take which we haven't yet captured? I know Celia's been busily adding some contributions as we've been going. So yeah, if anyone wants to open the mic or pop something in the chat. Okay, so Tanya's just commenting we haven't captured the intrapersonal. How would you characterize that, Tanya? I did add a couple. Oh, is that self-leadership?
Self-leadership, yes. I think that would be my self-leadership, self-motivation, ability to kind of within yourself to take agency. Yeah, I think so. Shifting one's mindset. Yes, Carol, I think. Yeah, I agree. That is what intrapersonal might be in this situation. Yes, and indeed, Elizabeth, I agree. Excellent points on the Padlet. So we'll save this Padlet. And Colin, will it be available for other people to contribute, or it will have that kind of static nature after we download?
No, we can keep this Padlet open. We'll link to it from our section in the Slowposium site, so people can pop in and sort of have a little bit of a look and add any thoughts, comments, whatever else. Did you have any closing remarks?
Yes, I think I've got one more slide. I'll just share if I can.
I'll stop sharing.
Reshare our slides. Can you see?
Yeah, I can see your slides now. Yep.
Perfect. Right. I think that I wanted to close off with this quote, and also just as a few quick provocation questions, I think, towards the end. And the quote was, I really sort of resonated with me. So that was a quote from a paper, Professor James Elmbourg, who reflected on library practices, and he suggests that third space is open, symbolic, playful, and generative. It can also be contested space if power differential force confrontations between conceptual systems, and yet the possibilities of third space challenge us to reconsider our professional priorities and concepts. And I think that just wanted to close that, of course, university roles continue to develop, emerge, morph into something else, and they're likely to be always located between several professional academic spheres of activities. And the actors in those spaces will need to cultivate new identities rather than try to hold on to something relatively clear and familiar in the professional structures. And these roles will be creative with new possibilities for recombination. But they may also be unstable, vulnerable to higher education changes and challenges. And third space concept and the methodology, therefore, is always a powerful analytic way of looking at the benefits and tensions of operating in those liminal spaces. It also recognizes the creative possibilities and also anxieties around identity for both those actors who operate in third spaces and those who work in more traditionally defined environments. And so these are the three questions, more so to provoke further thinking and perhaps for other future sessions, and to come back to that in the future. So the first one is, how can individuals mobilize third space learning and work to achieve genuine transformations? That's more to do with the kind of long-lasting transformations on various levels, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and organizational. And how will technology continue to shape third space thinking and working across third space environments? And finally, how could we third space professionals apply the knowledge of the phases of interaction productively and across various collaborative projects and activities? And I think that's really all from us, Colin. If you have you got anything to add? We've got obviously references and also just the quotes from Celia's work, what university space is. Just a reminder, I didn't want to start with this because it was Colin and I would discuss that. Of course, everybody knows what that space is, so it's not required, but I also wanted to keep those quotes, keep them alive in our presentation. I think that's really it for the session. So do we have anything else, kind of final remarks or final maybe provocation questions for us to consider?
I think that was pretty great.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Colin, and thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Celia, Carol. And I think I'm not seeing in my drop down who else is. Hang on, I'll just make sure. Tanya, Anthony, and did we lose somebody? No, I think we won't hear.
I think Keith had to drop out. Yes.
Right. Okay, but no, thank you everybody very much for joining at the kind of late or early hour, depending on where you are, and being sort of generous with your time and ideas and thoughts.